calling to order the June 16th Committee of the Whole meeting, and like to welcome the Park District Board and their staff for joining us. I think we've done this, Brian, at least a couple of times where we've gotten together to collaborate. And, we always enjoy working with our fellow I think they're more than taxing body partners, but, our friends as well. And we appreciate, joining us tonight and all the collaboration we have had, and we will, I'm sure we will have going forward. So with that being said, George, I think all of our trustees, I think this is a joint board meeting on both halves. So all of our trustees are here except for Ryan. Is that correct?
That's correct. Ryan won't make it here tonight, but everybody else is here.
So I know we're taking minutes. I don't know if anyone on the Park District Board, if you guys are taking minutes as well.
And we'll take the minutes and we'll put it on our website and can share it with the Park Board. But if you I don't know if Brian Pepich, if you see everybody on here, I probably lose count just for the reflection in the minutes, how many are here or not here. Or maybe Louise could answer that better here. I think everybody's here, so we can get started.
Are they muted, George?
Yeah, what I'll do is, and I'll go through the particulars of the meeting. I'll mute everybody, and then if you guys you feel free to unmute yourself if you want to speak, but I will start off by muting everybody. And I'm going to allow you to unmute yourself. No hard feelings there. Just trying to keep it a little bit quiet during the meeting. I'll turn it back over to you real quick, Mayor, then maybe we can get started. Just some housekeeping items here today. Obviously, since the shutdowns and the latest state law approved by the legislature and signed by the governor, we'll continue to do meetings via Zoom at least through June, and we'll have to reassess it going forward. Today is really more of a workshop, similar to a committee of the whole that we've had. There's no formal action on the agenda. There's no public hearings. It's really a workshop meant to be collaborative. We did offer the opportunity to participate before the meeting, and we did not receive any comments during the meeting. You can speak at the end of the meeting, or I think we have a pretty small group here. Feel free to use the raise your hand method on Zoom, and I'll show you how to do that here soon if you want to speak. But I think it'll be pretty collaborative. And as I mentioned earlier, we are streaming it on YouTube, and we will put it on our website after the meeting as well, along with the minutes. Like I said, just a real collaborative meeting here. The intent is to kind of create some excitement and just to share some opportunities that the village has available to us. Particularly in the downtown. The first item we're going to talk about is the MWRD Tri-Central property, just to talk about some of our thoughts on the project and open it up for discussion. But we also have, related to that, a project that we are engineering at this point, a bike and pedestrian bridge that will land at the foot of the downtown, right by the Tri-Central project, and then also some minor, some other downtown updates that we could discuss. After that, we'll go through briefly, just talk a little bit about Kettering Estates. I know we're kind of jumping all over the board. Last year when we did it, I think that was one item that we discussed along with a couple others. And as that subdivision starts to build out, as we'll talk about later, just the overall plan, I'd like to have the Park District understand where we are at with our improvements that we need to accept, and vice versa. And then get an update from the Park District on Van Brick Park. And that's something I talked to Louise about. Important for us to understand what's going on out there. There's other development in the area where the village has opportunities to run utilities. So we just want to get on the same page and understand where you guys are at and ways we can work together. And then to end kind of on a fun note, with everyone cooped up during COVID-19, we are still doing events, or the Park District is. We're trying to help out where we can. I'd like to get an update on that too, and we can kind of share ideas. So I don't know, Mayor, do you have any other comments before I kind of get into the agenda?
No, yeah, go ahead. Let's jump in, George.
Yeah. And let's make sure no one else is trying to get in. Okay.
Does Brian have any comments?
He might be muted, sorry. Do I see him on here? Oh, I'll unmute you, Brian. Any comments? You don't have to, but just want to give you an opportunity.
No, I appreciate that. No, we're all good to go. Go ahead, George.
Okay. Yeah, and I think and thank you, Brian. Thanks for Park. I think this worked out last year. Just any way we can work together. The one item I want to start with to kind of give everybody an update of where we are with some potential capital projects that we have in mind. But overall, we talked about this a little bit last year at our meeting, and I've been working with Louise on looking at recreation space and park space for the downtown. The village doesn't, or even I don't think the park district at this point control a whole lot of assets in the downtown. So just looking for different opportunities and along with our downtown revitalization. One thing, again, I think this is a good opportunity to generate some excitement for this overall project. Just to orient everybody, I know everyone pretty much knows, where the downtown is, obviously, but with where Tri-Central property, it's at the north end of Stephen Street. You could see this is where the Lofts is, the I&M Canal. Stephen Street kind of dead ends right now, right at the train tracks or just north of the train tracks. And then you have this massive, about 26 acre piece of property that really, before we start, I mean, it's something that, the village has been looking at for, I think, the better part of 20 years. I found a Tribune article today, just Googling the project and the opportunities over the years. And this was an old, Tri-Central Marine terminal site. It's owned by MWRD, but they leased it to Tri-Central Marine. They stored oil tanks, gas tanks. It was decommissioned back in 1999, and really hasn't been filled since. It is a brownfield site, but if you go back in time, soon after the village, or it was decommissioned, the village worked with the EPA on monitoring the site, doing some analysis, just knowing what, try to plan ahead for what could go there. As with any of our, projects or downtown development projects, we don't make these up overnight. I mean, you go back to the early 2000s, the village commissioned a pretty substantial study and came out with the Lemont Station Area Plan, which, again, you look at getting planners involved, the public involved. How can we redevelop the downtown? I mean, you're talking 15 plus years ago. You could see some of the areas that were developed according to plan, the Lofts. You're going to see some other projects come to fruition here soon with the Peterson Hardware property that we're pretty excited about. And the overall plan outlines key areas. And for today's purpose, we wanted to kind of just talk about even going back to the early 2000s, even though it was an old industrial site with I think 98 oil tanks or tanks at some point that needed to be hauled off. But the village has been looking at the site for recreation for the better part of 15, 20 years now. Understanding that recreation in parks is important for the downtown. We are not in the park business, obviously. We want to engage our partners to ensure that we're all working together to bring those uses to fruition. What came of that, and not going to get too far along in the history, obviously, is the 2005 downtown master plan, which you could see, some of it built out accordingly at some point. The village officials at the time thought, potentially residential for part of the Tri-Central site, but a lot of recreational uses, ball fields, walking paths. It's more than likely, and probably it's never going to happen where MWD is going to sell the property, and they wouldn't more than likely never allow residential on the property, as we're finding out now. They used to hand out long-term 99-year leases. They don't do that anymore. So this site will be either, recreation or, the interesting, our concern from a village standpoint over the years and even leading up till today is that it is still zoned heavy industrial. Obviously, that goes back to the original use from the 90s. Hasn't been rezoned. Typically, you got to work with the district on rezoning property of this nature. Last thing we need or want at the foot of our downtown is is another industrial user coming in here. And that, I think that's why, along with the need for recreational uses in the downtown, why the village has kept this on its radar. It's a key piece of property, a lot of history, not only with the proximity to the rest of the downtown, but just the history of the old bridge that was, they used to go over the Cal-Sag and the Des Plaines River, as we all know or have heard. That was the main entranceway into town before the state put in the new bridge. It's a lot of history on this site. Definitely our concern is to try to develop it accordingly with recreation to prevent against any industrial uses in the future for that piece of property. And again, another view of it, if you're coming south over the bridge, it's a pretty big piece of property, as we talked about, to the west of the bridge. And again, just the overall size discrepancy, I mean, between the 26 acres and the rest of the downtown. It is a massive piece of property, a lot of potential. It's something that we've talked about internally again for 15, 20 years, and just wanted to talk a little bit with the Park District Board on opportunities. Again, the village is not in the recreation business, but we do have, we're able to leverage our resources, partnerships with the MWRD. If now is a great time to start programming this site, and again, I think we're talking about passive recreation. We have the forge out to the east, which is obviously a little more active. We have other park uses around town. This would be passive, potentially over time. Grass, soccer fields, nothing, no structures other than maybe a bathroom of some sort is what we envision for it. It really is going to be I think right now it looks a little bit conjoined with the rest of the town, but you start to improve Stevens Street. We did the resurfacing through a state grant. The Public Works Department did a great job, or somebody, I should acknowledge that, painting the railroad bridge. And the village has opportunities through other state funding to go a little bit further, extend a water main, for bathrooms, maybe potentially one day, but also fix the stone underneath the viaduct. If anybody's driven past there, it looks a little unsightly. I think if you start to make improvements, it could connect to the rest of the town pretty effectively. And that's what we're really excited about this site, just because the village doesn't own any other assets in the downtown in terms of, flat land, and neither does the Park District. And this is an opportunity through MWRD. They've been very amenable to working with towns in Cook County on securing sites for essentially $0. It's when they deem something has very little chance of, if they can't make money off of it in the near future, they will lease it out to municipalities, park districts, and they've done that in the past for essentially $0. You have to hold liability, you have to hold insurance, but just an overall great opportunity to secure some flat space for the town. Before maybe we get right into another, I don't know, Mayor, do you want to say any other words before I kind of get into the bridge? Or
Yeah, I think, as far as the Tri-Central property, again, it's owned by MWRD. MWRD does lease land, as you mentioned, no longer 99 years, but what is it, 39? Is that
39.
typically 39? And, one of the concerns, though, is that it could be leased out potentially for industrial use. It is M3. It could be potentially something we do not want. So this is critical for the village, to pick this piece of property up. Again, it's a great rate, which is if not $0, $1, but we're not in the recreation business. We don't have those resources. The Park District is better suited to handle this, and this is where, working together, us being able to collaborate and have them lease it on, with MWRD. I think it's the best thing for the community. We're able to at least get control of that space and make it open space, and potentially over time, improve that space and improve it, from a recreation standpoint. So again, very excited and very appreciative of not only obviously the Park District, but MWRD as well.
Yeah, cool. From there, just because I think it does tie in pretty well. One initiative that we've been talking about for several years is just finding a way to connect to regional paths in the area in terms of biking. We have thousands and thousands of miles that essentially come and converge into Lemont, but they don't necessarily connect. No fault of trying, but just the location of Lemont, the valley, the Lemont Road Bridge. It's definitely a tough spot to connect to the trails. And just to give everybody an idea of what could happen at the site, not only with potential, passive recreation, bathrooms, maybe some other uses, is have a landing spot for a bridge that could connect all these trails and bring more people to downtown, more importantly, to spend money, recreate, and enjoy the town. So I will try to unmute Jason real quick. And Jason, if you want to take it from there and kind of talk a little bit about what we've been working with Terra Engineering on as a potential project.
Thanks, George. Thanks, everybody. Trustees, commissioners. And David Landauer, my friend at Terra Engineering, is on the call as well. He's the other Jason Berry in the lineup here. We've been working together on this project, and David brings a lot of experience as an engineer. He was the lead engineer for the Calsac Trail, one of our favorite trails, and has done bike bridges and all the rest. Is definitely in Chicagoland the guy you go to when we're talking about bike trails. So, and actually David was involved in an effort from the village in the past to bring a bike trail over in the quarry area. That project stalled because of the Coast Guard. This time we are determined not to be deterred by the Coast Guard, but if they have put a wrench in it. So as George said, tens of thousands of people used our trail system every year, but it doesn't have an economic impact in downtown Lemont because they pass us. I mean, Lemont's so well positioned. I'm just on a soapbox. I know I don't have to convince you of this, but you have the INM, the Centennial, and the CalSag all converging in Lemont, which is an incredible opportunity, but that opportunity doesn't find home in downtown because the trails are on the wrong side of the canal or whatever it is. So we've made an effort to try to bring back the old bridge that used to cross at the end of Stevens Street. The village still has right of way there. MWRD and IDOT agree that we have right of way there and can put a bridge crossing the Sanitary and Ship Canal. We've reached out to the MWRD, made sure they knew about our desire to do so. They think it's a great idea. We had a meeting with their executive director, Brian Pepich. Great guy, Southside guy. The first thing he told us is he went to Marist. So we knew he was on our team. And we've had conversations with Ozinga as well, and they think it's a really cool idea. They lease the land adjacent to our right-of-way. So this proposed bridge would connect the Centennial to downtown. Now, initially, if you've been at past State of the Village addresses, we've always included this concept as something we wanted. When David and I first started working, the reason we thought we could do this again is bike infrastructure has changed so much in the past 10 years from where it was when we first took a shot at this. You look at what's happening in places like Portland or even internationally, Copenhagen, and some of the bridges that they're doing. There's so much more influence or so much more experience now with bike and pedestrian infrastructure. So we thought we could do some elevator type system, get up just enough to cross the canal and land at Stevens Street on the old embankment. And again, I was really excited. We were kind of bringing back the bridge that was lost when the Lemont Road Bridge was created. When we finally met with the Coast Guard on that, they want the bridge to be as tall as the Lemont Road Bridge itself, the existing bridge, which is nearly 50 feet over the water. Undeterred, we looked at it and said, well, what can we do? We had already engaged John Ronan to be part of the design team. If you've heard his name, it's because he's working with the Forge. If you've seen any of the phase 2 structures for the forge, for the buildings where the climbing, indoor climbing will be, and the restaurant and conference center and all that. That's all John Ronan's work. He's a Chicago-based architect. So you could find his work around. And so Ronan came in and we thought, well, if it's got to be 50 feet in the air, let's engage somebody. Let's make it something worth looking at and something we could be proud of. So while we're still working on the design for sure, here's kind of the path that works. If you start towards the right of your screen, that's the north, and that's the Des Plaines River there, right underneath the Lemont Road Bridge. George is cursoring it for me. And it takes this sort of snaky path. It actually cuts through the supports for the Lemont Road Bridge at one point, and then kind of cantilevers out over the Ozinga property. And it takes this winding path because we need to get up to about 30 feet above ground level to get the clearance needed over the canal. And so we make it at that point. We cross the sanitary and ship canal, which really isn't that wide. And then on the other side, which is the Tri-Central property, it would do a loop, sort of like what you would see if you've been on the trails near off of Route 83. It would take a loop and just sort of loop right back onto Stevens Street. And so you pick up some momentum and you zip right back into downtown. So what we hope this becomes is really something almost like a tourist destination for cyclists. They want to start their trip here. We want to talk to Ozinga, put a trailhead here, put parking here. So you're not parking on the side of the road. You're parking right here. You're headed out on the Centennial and you're going down to Lockport or Imperial Oak or whatever it is. Or maybe you're launching a kayak onto the Des Plaines River. You have fun, and then you're able to zip into downtown Lemont and enjoy all our restaurants, retail, Pollyanna, or if you want to, it's a quick ride down to the Forge. So that's why, we've thought all along that this is really critical. And, we had a conversation yesterday at our committee of the whole. We are still engaged with Representative Lipinski's team, and they are still talking in DC with Coast Guard folks about the height of the bridge. What we're doing right now is just basically reacting to what the Coast Guard is telling us, and what they're saying it's not an impossible project, to meet their requirements. But obviously we hope the lower it is, the more appealing it is to cyclists, to be quite frank, and the cheaper it becomes. So I just spurted out a bunch of stuff, George. Hopefully that's good. I don't know if David has anything to add, or Mayor or Brian, but
Yeah, Jason.
I gotta take a sip of Diet Coke here.
No, Jason, great job. And again, we've talked about this and for the last, several years, getting some sort of bridge, developing the Tri-Central property, from the village standpoint, potentially, having a partner, potentially, again, it's all potential of hoping it's the Park District. But yeah, I mean, just to piggyback off what you said, again, with the Forge coming in, Lemont has some great natural assets that we've talked about, from the quarries out by the Forge to the waterways and our trail system. And again, it just is an incredible package. We just got to tie it all together, but Lemont could be and will be, I think, a recreation destination. And, this is something that will help feed the Forge, and the Forge will help feed this. And getting connectivity from the Forge to the downtown, getting connectivity from the trails. In fact, I just came off the trail system today. I was looking at the bridge, and, I'm just thinking that the darn Coast Guard, it would be a heck of a lot easier and, a lot less higher if we were able to make it the same height as, what is that, the Burlington Bridge? Or is
Yes.
that yeah, so the BNSF. So again, this is this type of stuff does not happen, as we well know, within a year or two. We have to start planning for this. We've been working on this for 3 years. We shared this, I think, in my, first State of the Village back in 17, talking about the Tri-Central property, talking about, a possible bridge. So again, very excited. And again, this is something that will just, feed the downtown and, the Forge and vice versa. So again, very excited, to get potentially this project. This project, we'll talk about funding. Initially when it was, I think as high as, or could be as high as the Burlington Bridge, we're talking maybe it's a couple million. It could be significantly more than that. But again, we would be using federal money. This would not be 100% funded by the village. We wouldn't be able to afford that. We would have to obviously pay the find funding for the 20%. And, again, this is something that we have to start working on now because these things do not happen overnight. We would be looking for a grant to do this, and that would take, we've been working on it for a couple of years and we keep plugging away. But again, a grant outside of village money is what's going to pay, the lion's share of this type of bridge.
Yeah, and if people feel like they've been hearing about it for a while, you're right, Mayor. We keep trying to poke away at grants, and you get to learn all the acronyms. We applied for Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program in 2017. That's known as ITEP. We applied for Invest and Cook as well. And in both cases, the feedback we got was it was too speculative of the project. We were looking for what they call phase one engineering funding. And so we hadn't really spent any money on design. We had, a feasibility study done from the last instance, but so that's what the village did when we hired Terra Engineering to complete phase one engineering for us, so that when we go to these funding opportunities or Rep. Lipinski or whoever it might be, we could give them some pretty good numbers and a design and a timeline and a public engagement plan and all that stuff that goes along with a project like this scope.
Thanks, Jason. And, before turning around to other people, I think without the pretty pictures and concepts that you have to spend money to start building, you can start to visualize even with the parking area. I'll bring back this aerial of a, the circular ramp, and you could still park underneath it. There could be a parking area. It could be a trailhead on the south where people can park and go to the trails, and to the west could be walking paths, other means of recreation. And what's really cool, I know it's the sanitary ship canal and it's dirty and everything, but it's waterfront property, and it's really cool when you're right up along the canal to be able to walk along that area. We think it'll separate Lemont from its competition, definitely, and sets the stage for future development. So definitely excited about it. As I mentioned earlier, we have opportunities to start throwing some state capital money at the project, but we just need to ensure that we got everyone aligned, at some point to pull the trigger on those decisions. So I'll kind of leave it there. Mayor, if you have anything else, or I might have a hand up that I missed, but.
No, I'm good, George. If anyone else has any other comments or questions, feel free.
I have a question. This is Dave.
Go ahead, Dave.
So I know we got the update on the village's point of view of Tri-Central, and I know we're in discussions with MWRD on the contract and with the Park District. I'm just wondering, could we give an update on that and what the discussion is with the partnership between us and MWR, or with us and the Park District? And
and Trustee Meyer, it's a good question. I think that's where we want to have the meeting to kind of further get everybody excited about the project. The way MWRD works, and we're working with with MWRD on another project as well. It's kind of a two-step process. You tell them, you declare your intent to want to lease the property. And that step is pretty easy. They look at it. Does anybody else want it? Will they give it up? And then the next step is you have to negotiate with MWRD, and we're not at that next step yet. I think it's a good opportunity to talk about it tonight. How quickly can we go to that next step, and you know, I think when you start involving another taxing body, the village, the park district, the next step would be, you know, agreeing to some terms that lead to an IGA type thing. And we're not going to do that tonight, but you know, that would be the next step, is that at our respective boards, we kind of we talk about, you know, what our each side's commitments are, and if this thing is going to be a priority for everybody.
Yeah, I think, Brian, you had a comment or your hand up?
Yes, I do. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep, you're good.
Okay. No, as everybody knows, we've already partnered with the village on the safety village and seen more use. We've collectively worked together on that and developed public restrooms down there. And it's been a beautiful relationship. We all bring something unique to the table. And as we move forward now and finalize our master plan, we had our survey that went out. And one of the number one things that everybody wanted to see was a stronger park presence downtown. You know, this is an opportunity to work with our partners again, the village. We all bring something unique to the table in the line of granting abilities. As we all know, the village has accessibility to certain grants we don't, and we have accessibility to grants the village doesn't. When groups like that work together through intergovernmental agreements, there's a potential for further developments. And I think these things are all very possible. We've certainly been in discussions, continue to be in discussions about this, and we'll move forward with these discussions and see what comes from it. But the park is very optimistic of some type of a further presence down there, and hopefully it'll work out for the village to potentially be our partners here in the future. So we're excited too. That town has got a lot of potential. I think in the next 6-7 years, you're not going to recognize much of that downtown anymore. It's going to improve that much. So my hat's off to you guys, the village, the trustees, Jason, everything you guys have done down there, and what's yet to be. So thank you for all your hard work, and we look forward to continue working with you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. And yeah, to second what Brian said, obviously this is a process, right? None of this is a done deal. This is, you know, this is part of the process. We continue to move ahead, potentially with MWRD. We continue to move ahead, potentially with the Park District. This is why we're on this call. You know, obviously none of this is a done deal. We're very excited. You know, we've heard different magazines call Lemont the Mecca for millennials. This will just add to, you know, not only, you know, people that, you know, like to bike at my age and older, but, you know, to get the younger crowd and younger professionals downtown as well. So I think this is just a great boon for the downtown. And I hope you're right, Brian. I hope sooner than later that you won't even recognize the downtown, because it's, you know, it's alive and growing. And, you know, we've made those steps over the last couple of years. Obviously COVID, little bump in the road, but we continue to move forward with development. So again, appreciate your cooperation and willingness to potentially, you know, move ahead on this.
So are we still looking at this being a joint contract with MWRD, or you said we've committed to the MWRD, saying there's an interest, then phase 2 is working on negotiations. So are we doing that together still, or is someone taking the lead? Do you have an update on that part of it, or we haven't decided, or where are we at there?
Yeah, it'll be a co-lease situation, you know, so similar to how Safety Village turned out. But yeah, Louise, I know you've talked to MWRD a little bit, and they've been super helpful, but how you see this working out if everything falls aligned?
Thank you, George. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Certainly, definitely exploring all of their options. Their lease language, and there's quite a few terms and conditions that we do need to review and understand, especially for development. And we are working on that, just obviously seeing if it's something that we can frame up to start presenting and start talking about as a team. we've had some discussions with them, and we'll continue to do that. But again, our goal is to hopefully find some opportunities to work together through granting, through opportunities that the village might have, opportunities that we might have, to create some great, recreation space there that is open and available to our public who want trails, who want passive recreation. So we'll continue to be exploring that with these parties, and hopefully we'll have something very soon as we continue to work on our master plan.
Okay, and George, I know there's some other opportunities for us on MWRD property. Are we doing those together with this?
No, yeah, this is the only one we're doing with the Park District. There's some other land that's west of 355 that's adjacent to the Centennial Trail that's available for us for future land banking, but that would be village only. Yeah, this is the one, and I think MWRD has changed the way they've done things a little bit. We found that out with the Park District or with the Safety Village. They don't like subleases and it'll be a co-lease. That's where the IGA comes in that we have to work towards. Between the Park District and we're not going to enter into separate leases with MWRD. That will be one lease. So we need an IGA that the attorneys look at and boards approve that detail all of the obligations of both sides. And I think Brian put it best. We have some grant opportunities, the park with Oslot and some other opportunities that they have, whether it be impact fees in the area. There's some things that the park has access to that we don't, and vice versa. It'll be a co-lease situation though. So we do need to move forward, with an IGA, and we can start talking about those terms soon. And move forward for those projects.
And has the Park District done any conceptual type planning on this site at all since the last time we met?
Louise, you guys have looked at, obviously the property needs to be cleared. So you've done some conceptual analysis of how it would work with clearing the property and capping it. And so you've done some conceptual, not a whole lot though. Is that how I ever understand it?
That's correct. There's also a variety of water management ordinances that need to be reviewed and looked at. So we're obviously looking at that. And then green infrastructure requirements by MWRD. So again, it's pretty involved, and we're continuing to explore that.
So are we in alignment that, I'm sorry I'm asking a lot of questions. I feel like something's going on and I'm just not quite sure exactly. So I apologize for all the questions, but is the Park District taking the lead on developing the site and we're kind of supporting where we need to support, or we haven't come to that agreement at all? I'm just kind of really confused, guys. Sorry for all the questions.
I think you're confused because it's still very early on in the process.
Okay.
Yeah, and those details still need to be worked out, But no, I'm with you today. I mean, just to kind of reset, get everyone, on the same page, and I'd like to get some, informal commitments, if that's even possible. Hey, we're all in this together. Let's go for this project. Because we'll, if not, we'll start allocating resources elsewhere. I think it's a great project. We've talked about it for so long, and there's a lot of potential. We're still beginning stages. These things take a while, even with MWRD, and it did slow down with COVID, just because their staff was out for a while. So that'd be a good time to, if anyone else can chime in, if everyone agrees this is a great project, let's not wait forever on it. So that's kind of why I wanted to meet tonight.
I can, this whole concept of us having something downtown is something the board is very excited about. There's no two ways about it. But as everybody identified, it isn't something that's going to potentially move overnight. You've got to dot your I's and cross your T's as you move along. And there's just a lot of things that are in the fire still. George, you were talking about COVID-19. Obviously, we've all had our hands full with that and the fallout from that. And that kind of taken the majority of every day of staff's efforts, although this particular topic is still moving forward. George and Louise are discussing it all the time, bouncing things off each other's heads. They're bringing it back to John and myself, and John and I talk about it on a regular basis. So we are moving forward in discussions of having something potentially down there on a regular basis. It's just that it's a very slow process.
I think to Dave's point, we need to look at some conceptual plans. And I'm all for it. And I think the whole bike bridge is really cool, but tonight's the first I've seen of that whole circular bridge that basically takes up about a third of the property. And if that's what it is, it is. But I think if we're going to be partners in this, we got to figure out how all that works together and how both of our concepts mesh in that. And I think Dave, that's a little bit of the confusion, is it's so early on. We've got to, I think, work some of that stuff out that I think should be in the IGA of who's doing what where down there. But I do think it's going to become the gateway to the community.
And the pictures probably didn't do it justice, Bill. I mean, it's a
It
very,
looked pretty darn big.
yeah, no, it could go, that's where your parking would be. And, you know, it's got to go somewhere, right? And we can't put it on over houses. So
Right.
just trying
Absolutely.
to, you know, we got to move it. I think to Dave's point, we've been, you know, I think he's got fatigue because we've been talking about it for 20 years and that's
Got it.
not your fault. It's ours, you know, but I think that's kind of where you're going, right, Dave? We need to move this to the next step, and everyone thinks it's a great project, a great idea. We have willing, you just never know what's going to happen with MWRD. Do they, you know, suddenly, I think the first thing is we need to get control of it, you know, because MWRD, everyone needs money right now, and that could be an industrial use. And I think from a village standpoint, you know, I'm comfortable saying where we come in is infrastructure. You know, you have the water, you need water mains out there. This road, you know, which is old industrial road, needs to be, that is on the site as well. That needs to be repaired. You know, the village, let's each do what we do best. You know, we are very good at infrastructure. Ralph and his gang, they're awesome. You guys are awesome at recreation. Let's knock this out. Kind of what I'm for the good of everybody. Kind of where I'll kind of leave it.
So do we want any type of, my last question, guys, I swear on this topic, but do we want any type of like joint collaborative group here or subcommittee like we did with H Corps to try to develop when we were developing, you know, the quarries and working with the forge? Is there a benefit to going beyond these meetings with a smaller group of people on both sides, or are you guys doing that? I'm just not aware of it, or
I think that's a probably pretty good idea, Dave. I think having a small work group, you know, that we come out of this meeting, you know, where we don't have to, you know, post meetings and wait for everyone's attendance, you know, couple trustees from each, you know, each board would be, I think that'd be very helpful to kind of meet even on Zoom, you know, have meetings every month, or just to keep this thing moving, and you kind of build some policy support, because, you know, we all only meet sometimes one time a week or one time a month, 2 times a month. I think it's a good question.
Hey, George,
yeah.
I was really looking for another night meeting to put on my calendar. So
yeah, me too. Maybe we could do tomorrow. That we can meet
Oh, I
Monday,
don't-
Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Our Zoom account is running out of credits, I think. We need to- Actually, Rick had his hand up. I'll let him speak here and then.
Well, I was just wondering if through your conversations with MWRD, do you know what the steps are? What we need is an outline moving forward and identifying what those steps are, rather than just shotgunning this thing at these types of meetings. Okay, we all agree we want to move forward. What are the steps? That's the next question. So do we know what MWRD is going to require? And then as we're doing that, there are things that we can do concurrently, like develop concepts within the site. We know it's 26 acres, so that's not going to change, nor is our permission from MWRD going to change. So we can be working on the conceptual things between us as we move those other ones forward, which is how you shorten the process. So, but we have to identify who's doing what and what are the steps. So in your conversations with them, do they give you a package to say, this is what you need to submit to us to get it going? Or, somewhere along the line, there's guidelines.
Yeah, Louise, you've been working with, is it Chris over there? They've been really helpful at, surveying, they have new rules that went into place recently regarding green infrastructure. So there's some of that back and forth on what they'll agree to. And I know people have said they're sometimes inflexible. I disagree. They've been pretty good about understanding that this is a long-term project. It could be, paths to start, and then 10 years from now, it turns into something else, and they've been pretty open to that. Would you say, Louise?
Yes, they have. And I think, Rick, there has been some work done. There is an ongoing dialogue with getting things ready. Surveys have been looked at to be updated.
Okay.
So we're there. Once we get us a little bit further, I think very shortly here, down a path with MWRD in accepting kind of what we want to propose as uses for it, and they're agreeable to it, then we'll start really getting to the next phases, which would be probably setting up committees to start really talking about concepts.
Okay, and do we run into any snags where, I know on certain parcels, not necessarily with MWRD, but other agencies, they'll only enter into a lease agreement with a village per se, or with a park district? Do we have that situation, or are they open to working with either of us or both of us? Do we know that?
I think we're in a good spot, because when we partnered together and worked on Safety Village, we really created a great partnership there, and I think they're very open to working with us together on this one.
Okay.
They saw the success that we had with that, and we really improved the opportunity for the use of this building. I'm actually here today, right now, taking the Zoom call from Safety Village. So I do feel like our reputation with them is good, and they're anxious to see what we can take this parcel to the next step.
Okay. And then finally, one other comment I'll make, and I don't know if maybe over the years they've changed what they want to see, but I know, just for example, I think it's on Southwest Highway, just as you cross the canal on the west side, for years, there's been some football fields there. I think that's Worth or Payless Park, who utilize that, similar to what we do, with the Hornets over the years. And there's not a whole lot there. It's green, it's fields, and I don't see anything real elaborate that they made them do there. Like I said, though, I don't know what has or hasn't changed, but that might even been developed by a club. I'm not even sure. So I think that's good news, was my point.
Yeah, even the the terms and conditions on the environmental cleanup, they're about moving it to one side and starting the project, and they've been, I think they've been really helpful. I think this benefits everybody, and it gets a problem off their hands as well. They have other sites like this, and it's just a good one. That's why it's also something we're excited about, to attach other funding to and get our state representatives involved, because it is a really good project. A lot of partners, including MWRD. I think they'll have their plaque all over this too. This is a really good project.
Well, if you need any volunteers for the group, I'm willing to participate. So.
George,
Dave?
Yeah, Dave, I think,
don't account-
go ahead, Ken.
go ahead, John.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, I think,
No,
Ken, we can't hear you.
Some
You're
internet
breaking up.
went,
well, okay, yeah, I'm just saying conceptually that I think we should leave that to the Park District. I think they're the experts in that, what's developing that. I think with regards to the bridge, I know we don't know what we're dealing with right now. We don't know what funding we're going to get. So I know it's like a two-pronged approach with regards to going, with the height, whether we got to be lower or higher. That's something we can do jointly, but I think we should just be there for the park district and help them along, but conceptually leave that all up to the park district, because that's what we're good at and that's what they do. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Ken, you're breaking up a little, but I think we all understood your point. But yeah, Dave, I think, we are kind of at the initial stage. I think we need to, solidify the agreement, the IGA, get the agreement with MWRD, and then I think that would give us better clarity as far as what are next steps as far as the vision of the site. To Ken's point is that, I'm sure, hey, the park district is going to have control over it. That's, we'll see what the agreement is, but Dave, it's not going to be something where, again, I don't know what the agreements look like, George, but I think for the most part, it's where we're going to be handing the site over to the park district. Is that, or is that to be determined? How, today's point, what is the IG, the details of the IGA, or is that still TBD?
It'll be similar to the safety village. We'll have co-rights to it, so that's why the IGA is so important to tie us together, so there won't be, there's no sub, there's no primary. We'll both have to decide together. Anything we go in, the first letter we sent in regarding the lease in order to get them to react and take us to step 2 included my signature and Louise's. It's a joint effort. However, we parcel it out and is amongst us. And I think MWRD wanted it that way. They like having more partners, and even the efficiencies of finding insurance for these type of projects. Typically park districts can get it a little bit easier because they deal with MWRD on park projects. And so we're just trying to, each side, whoever does anything better, we'll kind of leverage those skills. Anything else, or anybody
Was
else?
there something else you have questions on as staff? Is there some other direction you were looking for in tonight's discussion, or that we can bring to the table right now, or is that enough?
That's enough, other than if anybody else wants to join Dave on this committee, to work with, the park district, and that would be helpful to kind of move things along. They can make some, meet periodically where we're not all having to get together. Although I think we have enough. Everyone sounds like they're on board. We just have to move it forward.
I have a feeling this is something that might be in my wheelhouse, being that I'm doing the downtown focus group, maybe to do a little bit of a collaboration there down the road. This is way too early to even discuss that, but I definitely think we should be semi part of this, because even though, yeah, I agree with Ken, this is their thing. This is still a unique situation where, being it is in the downtown, that we should be kind of putting some thought of that into there too. So, but I'm with Dave. I wouldn't mind being a part of that too when it gets to that spot.
Yeah. Thank you for volunteering. No one's ever going to turn away a volunteer, Janelle. Good. You'll be out picking up dog poop on Saturday, right? Is that the?
Hey, George, or maybe even the park district staff, is there anything you need from us? Or is there any clarity on direction or support? Is there, or any, questions for us that can give, can help move this forward?
It comes down to the next of working on the IGA. I think that would be direction from the mayor and the board, the both staffs. Let's get an IGA by, a certain time period, and let's get going on it. That would be from both sides. I think you're not signing away anything yet. You're just saying, let's get an IGA by August, or let's get something into MWRD by July. I think that would help getting some direction. We all have a lot of priorities, but are we both willing to push this to the top of the list? No, I think we're
That's a
good.
yes, George.
Yeah, everyone loves it so much. No, it's all good. I mean, it's just trying to bring the project back to everyone's forefront, because believe it or not, there'll be another issue that'll take us off track. So why don't we do that, Louise? Let's I do see Ken's hand is back up. Why don't we aim to have an IGA everything into MWRD by August, and an IGA needs to happen at the same time, right? That's how it would work.
We have a board meeting next week, George, so I will
Okay.
talk to the board, and we'll kind of see how we can prioritize that, and also get some feedback from MWRD as well. Okay.
Very good. All
And
right, thank you. All right, guys, we will move on. I know everyone doesn't want to be here all night. The next item, let's go back to my agenda here. Kind of definitely off topic, but I know everyone's starting to get, or maybe starting to get questions or calls, or you already have, from Kettering Estates subdivision residents. A lot of history there. The project is just about built out. From a home standpoint, we basically, what happens when a subdivision finishes up is when they get to a certain level of sold homes or built out homes, they ask the village to accept improvements. And what that means is we're essentially agreeing to take over all the improvements that they've worked on for so long, the roads, the sewers, sidewalks, curbs, and we'll do a detailed inspection to make sure everything is good, because once it's ours, it'll be on the community to maintain in perpetuity. So very important step. With that, we are still probably a year away from full acceptance. There's still some issues with the ponds out in Kettering. The reason why we kind of want to bring it up here tonight is discuss how that's related, or if it's related at all to the build out of the park in Kettering, because I know I do get calls from residents, a lot of young families out there. Obviously, you can go back in time. The developer gave land instead of cash, or land only and no cash. So the park district had to build up reserves to a certain point to build the park, and we've seen that play out now. Louise, you want to try to go through, just to give an update to everybody on where we are with the park out in Kettering. I know MI Homes has been working with you on trying to take it over even before the village is ready to take over our subdivision. But where you guys are at with that process, maybe we can field some questions and see what we can resolve.
sure. And I just also want to announce that Larry Rizzo, Director of Maintenance, is also here in the building with me. Last week, or actually, no, it was 2 weeks ago, we actually walked the site, and the parcel that's expected to be deeded over to the park district is completed. It has grass. It is, there was a couple little minor areas that we brought to the attention of the builder. But for the most part, it is at this point, the grass is grown in as per the requirements. At this point, we would like, the village to advise us as to their status of the plans. It sounds like you said you're about a year away from accepting that agreement. And at this point, since you're completely the party with M&I, for us to break off any sort of acceptance of that deeded land would really need to be something that we'd have to work together on, because we're not a party to that agreement. I don't know, Larry, you're doing anything?
No, I think you pretty much
Well, I think from our, and from our standpoint is, we don't know exactly when it's going to happen. So, I mean, if you guys are willing, able, or to move it ahead of time, I think that's something you guys got to decide. Obviously I'm sure you're getting pressure to put a park out there. It could be a year, it could be longer for us. I mean, we want to make sure the ponds are in good shape, and but that's something that you guys got to tell us. We can coordinate that process with MI the best possible, but I think that's a situation between the two parties.
Well, as you had mentioned earlier in the conversation, this agreement did not provide us any cash contribution to build out the land with a park. So we have been acquiring some impact fees from Willow Point. So we have those. And again, we can't use the open space. The open space is not technically programmable. It's got quite a bit of slopes, and it is not flat, so we wouldn't be using it for any sort of programming for any of our field sports. It's really more of a passive open space. Again, we're hoping that M&I would have their HOA established soon. I know they're anxious to turn this over to us because they want us to cut the park. We've estimated that it probably is something that could potentially happen this year yet, but just willing to hear any feedback from the village if they have any thoughts or any plans that they would like to share with us.
Hey, Ralph, are you still on anything that other than what I went through on that side of it?
Well, I think, Jason, if you're here, I think the Kettering subdivision will be accepted in phases. And right now, I'm not really comfortable with those ponds. I have not been out there lately, but Louise, are you saying that you guys aren't comfortable taking that? I don't even know what it is, that area they're donating to you, or just not yet, or you're waiting for us to accept our portion? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm not sure if you wanted to do it under a master plan all at once, or if you wanted us.
Yeah, I don't know that either. That's gonna have to be worked out between the two boards, I would think. Or
So question for Louise and George, just so I got my head straight on this. This particular agreement with the developer is actually with the village, and then the park district would be the beneficiary. The park district is not technically a party to that agreement, other than what the village would give us in the back end.
But I don't think that the village takes it and hands it over. I think that's a direct agreement, but that's
It is,
something.
okay.
Yeah, Louise, unless you had something different from your attorney.
No, we don't have the agreement. If we want to move forward with that portion, we would then ask for your approval to do that, and then it would move over to us.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Hey, I have a quick question for you. Louise, I thought I heard you say that the open space is not really programmable, and I'm just wondering if it was flatter, would it be programmable? And is that something you want? And is that something like how did we get to a point where there's a park there that's a decent size that we can't use, I guess, and how do we avoid doing that in the future, I guess?
Well, no, I think there is a piece of the parcel that is definitely flat space that where the park, if there's a playground that's going to be built. But as far as the additional 6 acres, that is not programmable per se for field sports. Number one, there's no parking there. All of that parking, if we brought any sort of programs out there, that would all then be interspersed on the streets with the residents, and that's not a good option for folks. As far as the flat space, initially, we have that flat space for playground, but as far as the additional 6 acres, we do not. I mean, that is not flat space. That's all based on the engineering that was needed for the water management of the subdivision.
Hey, George, do you have like an aerial that shows it? Is this the 6 acres that we're talking about? Is this the kind of the land that's sandwiched between like a row of houses to the north and a row of houses to the south and
Yeah, Mayor, it's surrounded completely by homes.
yeah,
It
that's what I
effectively looks
thought.
like a big backyard.
And I think to
Yeah.
answer the question of how do we not do this again, is having active open space surrounded by houses with no access really limits what you can do with that piece of property.
Yeah, I mean, does it make sense to just, I'm just throwing stuff at the wall. I don't know if this sticks or not, but do you, and George, I think we might have mentioned this. I mean, it sounds like this is going to be some dead space, right? That's basically surrounded like the Alamo and it's surrounded by houses. Again, don't know, if the park district has some plans, but is this something potentially we give back to the homeowners or is this space we want to keep for, I don't know what we'd keep it for, or what the park district would use it for, but again, I don't want to throw this out there unless it makes sense, but is this space that you give back potentially to the houses that are surrounded by it, or is it just so big that that is not even practical?
That has been something we've explored. However, there is not an HOA that has been established yet. And so that continues to be part of the challenge. And then with the change of ownership at M&I Homes, or I should say staff, maybe ownership, I don't know the specifics, but we're working with all new people at M&I Homes. So until they get their HOA established, we really can't have any discussions of them possibly taking over the maintenance of what I'll call the common dead space,
Who's maintaining it right now?
M&I Homes.
Yeah, here's the overview. So it's this big, large area. The west end, I think, what, a couple acres maybe, is flat. That's where the park is going to go. The rest of it is it's like a fairway on a golf course. It's pretty large. It's wavy. It's great for the residents because they have a huge backyard. They could set up shop back there. It probably should go to the HOA, but that's something that they need to agree to. At least the other half, you know.
And there are walking access points throughout, right? So
Yeah.
between, there's bigger spaces between houses as you go around. I know that.
I believe there's 5 easements to get into the open space that are grassy areas.
Yeah, that seems like an HOA thing to me. Or
So-
vacate it, you know.
I have asked M&I Homes to provide me the property manager's contact information and then continue to press on them to, I don't think they will establish their HOA until they have, I guess, met the requirements of the village.
Yeah, I mean, MI is in control of it, but they don't want to rock the boat or probably make that decision for everybody. Maybe as we talked about, Louise, as we get a couple community leaders, we know a couple of them. I think there's one of the gentlemen on our planning and zoning board. He's pretty active. Maybe we get a couple community leaders together to talk about it. You know, maybe they could provide some pressure on MI Homes because I think you're going to have issues cutting it over time. People are going to have their deck post probably right abutting the property, and it's probably an HOA issue. So we just have to kind of get them to agree with us.
These architects, they have this all planned out ahead of time. What was MI's vision for this space when they originally submitted the plans?
It was to go to the park district because at the time, that's what, the village had them do. I mean, you have basically what you have here, you have this area is HOA. There's a couple other islands that are HOA, and then this is all park. the village gets the, we're not getting off scot-free here. I mean, we get these giant natural ponds that Ralph loves, and eventually they're going to be yours, Ralph. So sorry about that, but no, it's just something you over time, you get better at this. I think some coordination on the front end and understanding everyone's needs would have worked out better. It is a beautiful subdivision for what it's worth. I mean, but it's going to leave some challenges for a lot of open space, a lot of green area, cluster design. I think you could probably win a design in a new urbanist magazine, right, Jason? And it's actually a beautiful subdivision, but it is going to have some challenges for the taxing districts going forward. Again, you balance that out. You could have a cookie cutter subdivision with no challenges for us, or a great subdivision with some challenges. I'll leave that to you guys.
And I know most of the park board is turned since this happened, but what was the original intent from the park district? Because I know there was a battle on what land the park district would get before the subdivision got improved. I don't know Brian, are you the senior person?
Well, I can tell you that, you hit it on the head, Dave. This was negotiated by my predecessor. And I think I just got on the board, and it was handled between him and the mayor, I believe. So I can't really speak for how it went down or what they had agreed to or how they got to this particular point. And we've got some ideas that we would like to present to the homeowners association once they're in place, as to what we could do in a line of parks out there. And I think that's the key thing. Present some ideas to them and see what they have to say and move on from there.
And who's responsible for the woodsy area in the southwest corner? When this
I have
goes,
no idea.
George, do you know?
That is I believe that's the HOA, although Ralph, originally, I think when you look at the minutes going back in the time, it was supposed to go to the township for some reason. And I don't think that materialized. Again, it's a lot of good trees. But I believe it's the HOA.
One thing I wanted to mention just real quick, just to follow up on Dave's comment or question. Back when this subdivision was developed, after the property changed hands so many different times. And when this subdivision was designed, it was an opportunity for the first time in a long time to bring a development to Lemont. So people were excited about it. The park district always wanted park presence on that side of town. We have very limited park opportunities on that side of town. The park donation would have been, very large. Unfortunately, just due to the design of the subdivision, which it is a beautiful subdivision, it wasn't conducive to provide us 7 acres of flat space that could be programmed. And unfortunately, that was before most of the people that are on this call were involved, and we've tried to find a happy medium, and I think we're getting close. But it'll just depend if we can maybe talk with the HOA and see if we can if they can benefit from taking this space over.
Jason, you like the subdivision?
I love it. MI's been so good to work with. They really are a pleasure to work with on the building department side. Never a problem with them.
Yeah, we just got to work through those kinks. Obviously, I mean, the give and the take, and it is a great subdivision. It built out faster than just about anything, and then now they're finishing up, and I think we can get past that. I think we need to get a couple community leaders involved who understand the big picture, and maybe we can. I mean, there was a discussion to move the park. At the end of the day, that it was just too late in the game. You have this open area up front here, and this aerial on Google is really, really old because the subdivision is pretty much built out. But to move the park up here, again, it was too late in the game. You have people who bought their lot knowing that this was going to be open, and vice versa. So too late in the game. That would have been, I think, a decent spot for the park. It's flat. It's prominent, you know, but it's a little late in the game. So we'll update accordingly. Obviously, you know, let's get those leaders involved, Louise, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
Other than that, I can move the aerial, Louise. I think the next one I wanted to just get an updated Bambrick Park, and typically that's outside of our jurisdiction, and we would care about it anyway, but there's potential for development in that area. So just want to get just a brief overview from you, if you wouldn't mind, on and I'll have to, my computer's clogging down here with the internet, but if you could just give an update on Bambrick Park, would help us out as we go through some other projects out here.
Will you allow me to share my screen?
Yeah. Yep, go ahead. I will stop sharing mine here. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right, wait. Okay, how's that? Can everyone see it? No.
Not yet.
Okay, hold on. Shoot.
I think I have to allow it.
Oh, boy. There we go. How's that? No, that's still not it. 1 second.
It says you've started.
Yeah, but that's not the right. 1 second, please. Technical difficulties. I got to get to a different page. There we go. Can you see the map now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay. All right. Okay, so Bambrick Park. So the Park District back in the late 90s had the opportunity to receive some land from Citgo and actually enter into an agreement where they received 20 acres of land as a donation, and then they're leasing 20 acres. So we lease the 20 acres that is to the north. If you split the park down from east to west, the 20 acres of the north is the Citgo property, and we lease that. And then they had given us 20 acres to the south. And this, you know, there's 4 baseball fields that were constructed in the early 2000s. There's one of them that is highlighted here, but there's a baseball field here where my cursor is, another one here, and here is another one. So there's 4 baseball fields there. There's no lights, electric, or sewer at that parcel. We have been using that parcel for a variety of space for soccer, baseball, and football. Hornets football has been using that space, also Indians lacrosse. There's a walking path throughout the entire park that surrounds the park, and it's a very nice parcel. Back in about 2012, Park District worked on a master plan to help create some improvements at this site. There's 2 real glaring issues. One is there's not an accessible path that takes you to the baseball fields. It's quite a distance from the parking lots to the path. So this new orange highlighted area is a new improvement that we would be bringing a path to the baseball fields. The baseball field here that is noted is actually going to be completely redone. It is our only 90-foot baseball field. We do need to redo this field. We're going to be doing new fencing and also new infield and regrowing the grass there. But the pink area is highlighted because that is a drainage, the drainage needs. That some of that field tends to hold a lot of water. And just over the years, you know, the park has been, you know, obviously very highly used, but over the years, We really have done some, what I'll call crude adjustments to help with water flow, but now this project is actually going to create new drainage that's going to take this water down into a far culvert here on the south end, this blue line here, that's going to create a culvert, and that's going to create some drainage for us. One of the other items here is we're going to extend the path. It's not noted on this document, but we're going to actually extend the path from the baseball fields to the walking path on the far south side. We've worked with Citgo, we've worked with Will County, we've worked with One Oak, which is the pipeline. There is a pipeline that does run on this property. They have been notified, everyone's in agreement. The project went out to bid last month, and we were happy to report that we accepted a bid and will hopefully start construction in early July.
Cool. No, and I think that helps. We didn't want to, hold you guys up. I mean, again, some of our projects are several years out, and they require a lot of hurdles to jump over, and we're going to get there, but I didn't want to hold you guys up. So this is a good project. Gets a lot of use. And our goal, I mean, working with Citgo is we've had some incidents out there, obviously tragic, and we want to, have it in our jurisdiction so our cops could, patrol it a lot easier, more, have jurisdiction over it actually. So that's something we're working with Citgo on, and to ensure that we're able to do that, just so for those purposes.
Hey, George, the power lines run on the southern part of this map that we have up here, just south of the trail system where that blue line is.
Correct. Yep.
Do we, if down the road, because potentially we have, and I say this is all potential or opportunity, if we were able to get water running down that, if we ever looked into, can we cross underneath that, the power lines? Is there space there to run like water south of that? If we were to move water to the west of this property and potentially to property owners southwest of here? Well,
we would ask for an easement on Citgo property or this property. Again, a lot has to fall into place. ComEd typically does not like, they tend not to approve a utility run horizontally like that. You can cross them perpendicularly.
So you can cross them. That's my question.
You can cross them, but ComEd more than likely would not allow it to just go into its right of way. We ran into that issue out east, actually near Bell Road, where you start tying up corridors, but no, you can cross them though. You just have to put in the protection.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. So
I believe there's a gas pipeline underneath there also, a pretty big one.
Yep.
Like West Shore pipeline, I think.
You just have to be a certain number of feet, and yeah, it's all doable.
And just so the park board is aware, obviously we're in very preliminary, it's been going on for a couple years, but we have an opportunity of potentially developing land to the southwest of here. So that would, and they would need water, so that would provide a water run for potentially the park district. But how about the sewer, George?
Sewer, we would run sewer as well, but it's a little more complicated because of the gravity. You would need a lift station out there. But yeah, sewer, we would want to run sewer as well.
Yeah, it would have to be a lift station that would pump it to Smith Farms.
Yeah.
And that's where the nearest water is as well. We tap off Smith Farms and run it to Bambrick, and then potentially, to 135th and then back to Target to loop it all up. That's, I think, the main goal there. But yeah, the sewer is challenging to get it to a gravity sewer. and that would require either 1 or 2 lift stations.
That's probably, Ralph. I mean, for this site, you'd have, water can easily be tapped into it once it's there. Sewer's problematic, but you could do a chemical solution for toilet. Probably similar to what we would do for Tri-Central, right? It would just be water, don't you think? Or
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of money to run the sewer and the lift stations. I mean, the water, that's more doable for Banbrook.
cool. All right, thanks, Louise. Anything else on this project? Well, other than that, I think maybe we end it and we could have more discussion too. But Louise, you wanted to be able to go through kind of the events that we talked about. Actually, we had to cancel Heritage Fest, and I understand July 4th was canceled. Although we're doing other things, but if you want to go through what we had planned for the rest of the summer, and we can kind of work together and how we can help out if needed.
Sure, thanks, George. So in lieu of the fireworks show on July 3rd, we are going to be coordinating America's Birthday Parade, which will begin at 6 p.m. And it is a parade that will be similar to our Touch a Truck event that we had in late April. This event is going to start at Kettering subdivision. It's going to make its way into downtown Lemont, and then finish up in the west side of town. It'll be about 3.5 hours. There will be no floats or walkers, but it's strictly just vehicles and trucks and cars. And so far we have about 35 vehicles that are confirmed, and we're still working with various groups to add to the parade. So we're excited about that. I think that will be a nice opportunity for people who are staying local and who will want to celebrate our community. At this point, we have canceled our July sunset soirees, but we are looking at opportunities. We're seeing some other communities do a similar event with outdoor live music in their downtown areas. I'm calling it maybe dining al fresco. So maybe setting up the street in various restaurant style. So each of the area restaurants could possibly have space, and then we would have music. So this is very preliminary. We're going to be working on that over the next couple weeks and see where that goes. I think we'll need to be reaching out to Jason and see what his thoughts are, but we'd really like to see if we can continue with those. We're getting a lot of requests from the community. They're really looking forward to the soirees and hoping we can still have those at some point later this year. But again, it will all be based on the Restored Illinois guidelines. So we're going to take a look at that, but we're also taking a lead from what other communities are doing. Just in general at the Park District, we have the drive-in movies that are taking place. We are now outside with outdoor recreation. We did open our outdoor swimming pool for lap swim and therapy fitness classes. So we're slowly but surely, adding more activities, and our day camp is starting as well. I think our next event is going to be that we work together on is the Quarryman Challenge. Right now that is still postponed to November 7th. At this point, we have 418 runners that registered. Last year, we hosted about just over 800 registrations. We haven't been advertising right now just due to the concerns with COVID, and we don't know what will be allowed. But at this point, a few registrations continue to trickle in, and we'll start ramping up advertising again once we hear the phase 4 guidelines. And that's really all I have right now.
Hey, Louise, asking for a friend who has crazy kids. I mean, have you heard any guidance on when the community parks will open up? Is that phase 4 or not a hot topic on social media, but any update on that?
No, last week we did receive confirmation that playgrounds were still not available for use. Parks are open, but playgrounds are not available. We're hoping, typically on Fridays, we get information from Springfield and/or IDPH. We're hoping to hear something soon, but I don't have any specific information regarding playgrounds at this point.
John or Louise, are you guys hearing anything like that they are going to be going to phase 4 next week? I'm not, haven't heard anything. It's just kind of scary that the governor's been kind of, hush on, we're on pace. Before when we were going to phase 3, he kept saying we're on pace. It's coming, we're almost there, and now he's just kind of quiet. Have you heard anything?
Yeah. I mean, George, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, we're spot on. We're gonna nail it, right? We're gonna be in phase 4.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, the metric.
that's kind
keep going down.
Yeah, that was kind of my next question, and maybe Louise, that's what you're referring to is, we probably need more clarity, like what is phase 4 for outside? Like I believe we're going right now. I believe it's indoors. It's what under 10 people, and then it goes to what 50 or less in phase 4 indoors. But what is outdoor? And maybe it really doesn't change. Maybe outdoors, in outdoor, can you have groups of 50 people would be my question. I don't know, George, if Mike's given us, because I know, and just to make sure everyone on the Park District Board understands, we are going to, in some shape or form, do the auto shows. We're hoping to. Those are in discussion right now. That will not happen until phase 4, which is, what is it, George? June 26th? Is that the? So, or Jason, you might know more on the auto shows, but yeah, Mike, to answer your question, we're going to be opening up to phase 4, but I think we need more clarity on it. Jason, I don't know if you have any comments on phase 4 or anything you've heard.
Yeah, I think one of the concerns in the initial Restore Illinois plan was phase 4 was also tied to contact tracing. There was this requirement that you could do 90% contact tracing. I heard that's being negotiated down to 30%. I heard that from Mike Stillman. And talking to the chief, not to put words in his mouth, but he also is very connected with, his sources and colleagues in Springfield and throughout the state. And essentially, everybody agrees it will happen June 26th. I'm not completely worried about the silence from the governor's office, only because the move from 2 to 3, we got all the guidelines the Sunday before. So it was Sunday, Memorial Day, and then everybody opened on Friday, and it was a mad rush. I would expect sort of the same thing, honest, to be there. We do a business, or did a business Zoom every Friday, and we had DCEO on the call not last week, but the week before, and and they acknowledge that they're working on their phase 4 guidelines. So I think it'll be coming, but I think we'll be probably scrambling just like last time. We'll probably get it, at best a week before.
Yeah, God forbid they get anything out early at the state. You got to make sure it's last minute. So.
And if you saw the guidelines last time, they're well done, beautifully designed. They were excellent, but you knew they spent a lot of time on it. So they could have given us a little heads up about the content and not so much worried about the presentation, but it is what it is.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments for the, about anything we've talked? Any of the trustees or commissioners want to speak now? Do you have any comments, questions? Mike, I know you're dying to talk again, so come on, Scarlatti, let's go.
No hands here.
Dave, you're our talker on our side, so.
I think I got all my questions in already. My sheet's empty.
You tired us out last night, Dave, so. No,
I try,
No.
John, I try.
no,
My
no.
only thing I'm going to add is I'm super happy about Bambrick. It's so needed, and I think it's a great move to maybe additional things down the road. I think it's awesome. So great job, Louise, because that's super exciting. I wish if my kids were little again, I'd be thrilled.
All right, I just have one more thing. I was just wondering what discotheque Bill is working at right now. Are you a DJ at a discotheque?
I caught that too, Mike.
Come on, that's the Purple Wall at Tomorrowland in Walt Disney World in Florida.
Oh, okay.
Oh, very cool. Very
It's
cool.
the Instagram wall. Yeah.
You park board commissioners are so much, more fun than our board. You guys have so much fun. Remember bring the tie-dye shirts back or something, You guys have way more fun. Our meetings are boring,
Oh, what are you saying, George? Jeez.
Next meeting's at Pollyanna then. We'll get it interesting quick. Very good.
One thing I wanted to say to the park board and staff, you guys did a great job with that parade. I had a lot of people talking about it. All the neighbors were out, and I think it's a good move doing it again. Congratulations with that.
Hey, and Ralph, since we're sharing the love, how about
Big hugs.
some show us thanks for Larry and the park. I don't know if people are looking around, great collaboration there, helping our business owners get picnic tables and all the rest. Again, to Mike's point, those rules for outdoor dining were dropped on us on a Sunday at noon. We were closed on Monday because it was Memorial Day, and then everybody was told they could open on Friday, and nobody was prepared. And Ralph and Larry had it all figured out before I could freak out. So
I don't know about that, but we tried, Larry.
they both know I freak out, so they just kind of make things work for us. So yeah, and every business owner was so happy. Everybody got what they wanted. Awesome job. Made a definite difference to a lot of businesses in town. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys. I mean, I know Fork and Spoon.
There's Larry.
Sorry, I had some technical difficulties with my computer, so last minute, I apologize for that. But yeah, that worked out real well. And it was, it's our pleasure to be able to, to help and do whatever we have to do to, to assist the community. And so happy to do that. We're always happy to help.
Yeah, thanks Larry, and thanks Ralph as well, and thanks Park District, because the park, those picnic tables are a godsend for like a Fork and Spoon, and downtown, even La Dolce. Are those the park? Are those benches in front of the bowling alley? Are those the Park Districts as well? The ones out on the lawn.
Now, Corey had their own, but Gels, the Dolce Vita, Cornerstone, Fork and Spoon, Three Corners, all over town. Wooden Paddle. Yeah. So all those businesses, they weren't ready to open, and you guys made it happen.
Yeah. No, Bob was very appreciative from Fork and Spoon. Jonathan from Wooden Paddle. Everyone says thank you, and we thank you as well. So. Okay. All right. We're getting close to the end here. Any other updates or discussion? Anyone on the board have anything? George? Ralph, anyone? Okay. All right. George, next up, audience participation. I'll leave this one up to you.
Our 2 or 3 residents that hung in there are gone, except I should mention Dan Ganser. He's got his hand up. So yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Thanks, George. I was going to say, I'm
sorry.
And unfortunately, I do kind of have a little bit of a list, but because I wasn't going to speak up while it was the regular agenda, but I had a couple of questions about some of the things that were brought up, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I did want to, again, spread the love here too. I do appreciate everything that everyone's done here as far as moving through this COVID-19 stuff, it's been a disaster for so many people and so many businesses, and certainly the village and the park have done everything that they possibly can to help everyone along. I'm looking out my window right now at the movie in the park right now, and the parking lot's full. And so that's a great thing to see, people doing what they can here to get together and get out of the house a little bit. So back to my questions, though. I'm going to start with Bambrick real quick. I liked what all is being proposed there. I did have a question, though, about drainage on the east end of Bambrick. There's a couple of spots on both sides of the entrance to Bambrick that tend to pool water on the path. And I'm wondering if anything was going to be done about either of those two areas as part of the plan that you have to redo the drainage over on the other side of the park.
So Dan, that main issue with the water that ran over the path on that east, it's actually the northeasterly portion of the walking path. We did actually correct that. There was an issue with some of the drains were partially plugged up, and as a matter of fact, Public Works actually helped us flush them out, and we haven't had, when we shouldn't have, any of that water running across that path anymore. You won't see that anymore. So is that one of the areas that you were referring to?
The lower level down closer to the entrance. Yeah, that's one of them. And the other one's up on that, just around the corner, the southeast corner on the south side of that trail. That also tends to pool up water when you get any type of rain as well. And that one's probably a little more difficult because that looks like it's pretty flat there. I'm not sure where you'd have to dig something somewhere to get that to go somewhere. But yeah, that's been pooling over there in that corner for a while as well.
Yeah, we're aware of that, and a lot of that water ends up running across that main entrance, the main drive coming in. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, it eventually works its way down the path and then goes out into the entrance out into Smith Road there. So
right. So we can we're aware of it, and we'll take another look at that and see what our options are to try to correct that.
Okay, and then just so I'm familiar with this, there was I guess an allusion to the possibility of some development happening southwest of Bambrick and by the village, and if something like that were to happen, then obviously you'd have to get water and sewer and electric and all that other stuff out to that, which would make getting any of that type of utility to Bambrick almost a no-op at that point. You'd have to pretty much go through Bambrick to get it out there. Is that correct, or is there any way that Bambrick would be bypassed to get something if again something were to be developed over there? And that parcel was looking to be developed probably, I don't know, 10 years ago, and then we had the recession at that point, so that all got shut down. But is that kind of what was alluded to earlier, that there's a possibility of something going out there, and then if that happens, Bambrick would get all those utilities? Otherwise, Bambrick's probably not going to get any of those utilities. Is that kind of where we're at on Bambrick getting water, lights, etc.?
Yeah, I think, George, I'll let you, but yeah, I mean, the water, we could run water. And I think it's probably I mean, it can go either way, Dan, but we could still run water, I believe, down 135th, but if we were actually servicing someone off of 135th, it makes sense to try and run it through Bambrick on the south end, because it would give them the ability to tap in. So we were actually doing that as a a potential service, or a potential either water. Sewer is more problematic, but yeah, I mean, that definitely we're thinking of being able to supply those utilities for the park, if not initially, at least down the road.
Okay, and one of the other things I had heard previously, and I didn't hear it discussed on this call, was actually annexing Bambrick into the village. And there was discussion of whether that was really possible or not, because it needs to be contiguous, and the only contiguous possibility is like a kitty corner to Smith Farms. Has that been kind of ruled out as any way to, and this goes to the point of, like you said, being able to service Bambrick with police and whatever
Oh,
else.
yeah, Dan, as part of the project, it would include the ability to annex Bambrick and an adjacent parcel, so there's contiguity, so that we could run utilities as well. And absent the project, there likely won't be any annexation, and
Okay.
there won't be, and the utilities probably won't be run unless the park district were to come out of pocket for it. The goal would be to leverage the development, and it'll be an industrial, nice, clean Class A industrial building that requires water and sewer. So we'd hope to piggyback off that project to give utilities to the park as well and annex.
Dan, I'm impressed with your annexation knowledge. Good job.
It's a prerequisite in Lemont. You have to be an expert in annexation.
You even know the kitty corner rules. That's impressive.
Well, I've heard it discussed in the past.
Yeah.
The last thing that I wanted just to bring up, I did actually submit this as a question, George. I don't know if you got it, but it's just kind of pie in the sky type of thing. But it was brought up back when 355 was developed through, when it came south of 55, and so it's whatever that was, almost 20 years ago now. But the land to the west of 355, to the north of 127th Street there, I don't know how many acres that is, but my understanding, and I never saw anything formal on this, was that they had approached the village and or the park district about leasing or taking over that land and doing with it whatever we please, because the tollway's just going to sit there and let it grow weeds. Has that ever been pursued by either the park district or the village? And I know, land acquisition and such is all closed session type things, but that it's a shame that land's just probably going to sit there just growing weeds for the rest of my lifetime unless someone takes an initiative on that. At the time I had heard that it was, next to free that it was being offered to us. So again, if they're asking for millions and millions of dollars, and certainly that's not something that I know we have to come up with. But if it's still something that they'd rather just have someone do something with at some reasonable rate, I'd really love to see someone, and the park district, it would be probably a park rather than them letting the village take that over and develop it for an industrial or a subdivision residential purpose. But again, it would probably be something similar to MWRD or the Tri-Central land, where it would be good if both boards, both entities were in lockstep on wanting to pursue something like that. So again, just a question whether that's been discussed, been pursued, any feedback anyone has on whether that would ever come to fruition.
Yeah, Dan, we talked to the tollway about it pretty recently, actually, because we inquired about what is the process if a commercial developer wanted to go there, and basically if it's a private entity, there's a whole litany of rules and has to go to auction, and more often than not it dies there because then competition gets introduced. But they will work with a municipality and a park district, and as I understand it, it's been declared as remnant land for them, so it could be available. I guess I don't know if anyone had any thoughts about what is the park district looking for, more flat space on the west side of town? It's a good question, because I think it can be available, but what do we do with it?
Dan, just so I'm clear, Dan, you're referring to the northwest corner on 127th, right? By Briarcliff?
Right, basically between Briarcliff and the tollway.
Yep.
And just north of 127th Street, correct?
And I know you guys just put in your new park just south of there in Mayfair, Louise. Do you guys have any other plans to do more parks on that side of town, or you don't have to answer tonight, but we could talk about it, Oh, you're muted.
Focusing right now focusing on downtown. I mean, it did take a while for us to develop Mayfair. That parcel was vacant for quite some time, and I don't want to speak if any of our the park board members, but we were focused on that for quite some time on the southwest corner. Brian?
You worked with the tollway on that property too. They were pretty amenable to you guys have to buy the land or they donated it or you guys got it at a discount. They're usually pretty, they work well with governmental entities. Generally.
Yeah, that was actually 2 acres that we purchased and they were very understanding and very reasonable. We had the property appraised and they came in very close to the appraisal.
Okay.
So
We can follow up though.
yeah, I mean, that's something that's still off in the future too, is to further develop that particular area there, which is right across from where Dan's talking. And I'm not familiar with the area Dan's talking about, and I need to get familiar with that.
Yeah, I mean, I know just in general, right, George, like, you know, either Pace or, you know, that area potentially has been talked about, you know, for, you know, very similar to what they do. Where's that at? And off Route 30 down in, is that Plainfield or Joliet, where they have like a Pace stop?
Yeah, Plainfield. Yeah, they have a really nice bus station and yeah, I know we've talked in the past about would that be a good alternate to Metro? I mean, we'll see what happens with COVID, how many people continue to work downtown, but just another option because the Pace buses can use the shoulder. And actually the one in Bolingbrook actually takes you down for Bears games, White Sox games on the weekend. So a good benefit to residents, definitely. That's been talked about. We'll follow up though to see if we could secure it at least and get just so we have the option. So we'll follow up on that, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I was hoping that you would take it, because again, just listening to how long the Tri-Central acquisition situation has kind of gone on. I mean, that was around back when I was on the board in 2003. So it's almost 20 years, like you had mentioned, George. So if the sooner we can start something like that and move, you know, if we have some type of idea, let's put it out there, and it's at that point you can get the land. It's probably not, again, it's not going to be a $1 per year lease for 39 years, but if the tollway's willing to give it to the village and the park district at a much reduced rate compared to what they'd give it to some commercial developer, you know, prefer. I've always thought of that being something more recreational than a bus stop. So my personal opinion is I'd much like to see something like what I've always said is like a BMX bike track or trail around there that I think could draw in from outside of Lemont and be something that could be very interesting there.
Hey, Jason,
whether that competes with the Forge or not, I don't know at this point.
Jason's trying to get a bike shop for the downtown. We don't want to compete, you know, but that's something a little bit different, but Jason's on it. We'll get there.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you get more bikers out here, you get the BMX bikers out here, then the bike shop just thrives even more. So, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very cool.
That was all I had.
Okay.
Thanks for letting me speak.
No problem. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Okay. All right. Well, no executive session, right, George? Are we good to go? Okay. We need a motion to adjourn. Thanks again to everyone on the call. Before we do it, though, I want to thanks our friends at the Park District, staff, commissioners. Want to thank all of our trustees and our staff as well. So, and Dan, thank you for the questions. Appreciate it. And with that being said, need a motion to adjourn.
So move Stapleton.
Second, Kittredge.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, good night, everyone.
Good night,
Thanks.
everybody.
Take
Good
care,
night.
everybody.